a content-neutral piece of information, which is the location of the speaker. And the last is the June Lozada attempted disappearance. You will recall that June Lozada was a star witness in the ZTE-NBN corruption scandal. We saw him first on TV. He was at the airport about to leave for a conference in London. He was hurriedly sent to London because he was under a subpoena to testify before the Senate. And there were two witnesses, him and Secretary Neri, Romulo Neri. Neri was able to invoke executive privilege. The one person who couldn't invoke it was June Lozada. So the only way to prevent Lozada from testifying was to send him abroad. So he left abroad, and then eventually he decided to come back. Upon landing at the airport, the family was waiting for him. He did not get as far as the family. As soon as he exited from the plane, some burly men brought him to a waiting car. He bypassed all the checks, immigration and customs, and then the car, the location of our international airport, started driving north. Got as far as Kalayaan Avenue on C5. That is like from the airport right after the fort, right after Market. And then apparently they got a phone call. They made the U-turn, going back to Santa Rosa at SLEX. And of course, in Philippine history, they usually dump the victims of disappearances somewhere in Cavite. And that is where they found the body of the publicist, Dacer. So they were on their way there, and the whole time, Lozada could hear the men, the guy in front anyway, saying, "Anong gagawin namin dito?" Not even referring to him as a human being. What do we do with this? And then as soon as they got to Santa Rosa, they got another phone call. They started driving north again. They got as far as the Katipunan flyover. And then they made the U-turn, and finally they ended up at Outback Restaurant on C5, closer to the Ortigas area, where there was a lawyer waiting for Lozada. The lawyer is actually a former professor of evidence here in the law school, very good friend of mine. He had an affidavit to be signed by Lozada saying that he was taken with his consent and that the guards were there in order to secure his safety. That was the... So, look, if Lozada eventually was disappeared, the only evidence of what happened would be the cell phone records, and we will deal with that in a short while. So, the next few minutes, and I will spend much more time with the factual than with the constitutional aspects, which I will just summarize, because anyway you have them in the printed version. And I ask all of you to join me if you think I'm missing some information. Detlef, I've got to tell you, when it comes to technology, I always defer to my students. They know much more about these machines than I ever will. The question is, what information is available from your cell phones? Let's deal with this is the basic survey. There is information available from the handset itself. You get hold of your machine, you can see some information we will summarize later. But there is information available from your telco, the telecommunications service provider. And here, there is a distinction between postpaid and prepaid. Can I just get the survey here? How many of you use postpaid? Oh, this is quite postpaid, okay? This is impressive. And for prepaid, okay. Well, thank you. Well, this is not representative of the Philippine demographic. No, really, because apparently it is 95% prepaid in the Philippines. Postpaid is a minority. And I assume that all the postpaid beneficiaries here are beneficiaries of their parents. I suppose the bill goes straight to your parents at the end of every month. Congratulations. And Detlef already introduced to you one bone of contention, the retention period. And the retention period will differ if you're postpaid or prepaid. This is for the identity of user. caller and the receiver, the call data record. And this is part of the jargon we will deal with. The call data record is the originating number, the destination number, the time of the call or the text, and the duration of voice messages. And here is the most protected, the content of the message itself. And next and finally, the location of the user. Let's proceed to the next. From your handset, the information to be worried about the privacy of your messages. Exactly as Detlef has mentioned, there is a problem of storage, and the position of the telcos is that they do not store any record at all. The jargon is that it is a pass-through, meaning all the messages are just scrolling down a screen. And exactly as stated earlier, the sheer mass of data. In other words, even if you have some voyeuristic technician at Smart or Globe, they cannot really read all the text messages going through, both the garbage stuff, all the jokes, all the short like thanks, okay, and of course the love notes, the sweet notes. All of that will just be scrolling through. If they want, they can read it, but the sheer mass says that realistically, unless your messages are being monitored, nobody realistically will be able to read those text messages. From the telco, let's proceed to the next. Here we deal with the one key element about the call data record. When I say that there is information which is ordinarily available. That is ordinarily available because they needed to charge you for the services. In other words, it is purely a content-neutral business proposition. You want to buy their services, you got to pay for it. To pay for it and for you to know what you're paying for, we all have to find out how often you text, how often you call, how long you call, and all that information will be available to the telco. And the net effect, as you'll find out later, is that there is a lower threshold of protection because of the business and routine nature of the collection of that information. The next, however, is information that can be secured only with prior arrangements. And notice, I am not saying necessarily a warrant. A request is all it takes. And it then introduces us to that, I call it the twilight zone. There is a period of time before a warrant is issued that your right to privacy is actually in jeopardy. And yet there is no technical constitutional objection because, again, the technical word is there is no state action requirement. The monitoring is not being done by the state. It is being done by the Ayalas for Globe and by Manny Pangilinan for Smart. In other words, it is a private party snooping into your conversation. The Bill of Rights does not click into place. There are refinements there, but that is the dilemma. The next one. The identity of the user is a problem for prepaid subscribers. It is not so all over the world. Here in Asia, Malaysia and Singapore will be able to identify you even if you're a prepaid subscriber, because in order to purchase a SIM card, you would have to register your national ID. They do issue a national ID. We have two cases later on that we will discuss. In the Philippines, we don't have any national ID. So you can buy a SIM over the counter and you can put any fake name, and there is no purpose and no value in monitoring fake identities. Again, just to show you the extreme, there is one country in Southeast Asia where SIM cards are priced at roughly around, believe it or not, $1,000 US, believe it or not. That is in Myanmar. Well, they have a dictatorship there. And precisely because they control the